Hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? Welcome to another AMCI presentation. My name is Rochelle, and are you ready to code along with us and learn all about resolving NCCI edits? All right. But before I turn you over to our wonderful presenter today, allow me to go ahead and take care of some technicalities. So if you are viewing us on a computer, please go ahead and take the time to check your audio panel. It's really good to make sure that whenever we start later, then you won't have any technical things. Make sure that your audio panel is set up to computer audio. And also, if you don't have access to computer, that's fine, but webinar actually recommend that you, when you're viewing us on a phone, just make sure that you view us through the GoToWebinar app. That way, it is more compatible to the hybrid webinar that we're doing today. And also, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we do have some handout for you on your handout panel that you can use for today's presentation. All right. All right, Kiki, that's it. Thank you. And then next, I want to talk about the CEU. So you are going to get 3 CEUs for this event. Um, uh, just make sure that you take the assessment, and upon completing that assessment, then you will get your CEU credit certificate. Just remember that you must complete your CEU assessment test within 48 hours. After that, we are going to close the access to the assessment test, and do not share this link with everyone. This is a violation to your AMCI APC copyright clause. And also provide full name and correct information in your assessment for APC and AHIMA verification. And also, actually, we are going to be sending the link to you after the presentation, but if you miss it, don't worry, because you are going to get that in your email an hour after this webinar closes. All right. And another thing, so as you know, our Madness events is like really just being out there right now, and we probably have given probably about 15 CUs at this point, but there are actually more. And so if you haven't done so yet, make sure that you check our AMCI March Madness calendar. See there's still a lot of free events and paid events that are really great coming up for the next um 2 weeks, and actually we're saving the best for last. So check it out and register if you haven't done so already, and we hope to see you there too. Next week, actually Monday, is E&M, the big one. So make sure that you have registered already. And we do have the a lot of people are actually asking about the playback, and because a lot of it are, a lot of you are requesting for it, so we actually have it now. You can get all access to AMCI playback, including the paid events, for only $100. And that means that you can actually watch all of our events at any time, or preferable time. But it's only available. Actually, for that price, it's only available up to March 15. So beyond that, it's probably going to go up. So if you are interested to, if you want to revisit, rewatch some of the webinar events that we already had, or if you don't want to miss the paid events, this is really a great deal, because not only you're going to get access to the paid events, you're going to get access to playback as well for only $100. So I encourage you to go ahead, visit our website, ask our customer service, and they'll be happy to tell you all about it. Okay. And of course, we have CEUs here at AMCI. So anytime you need more CEUs, we have it on demand. It's going to be available April 1st of 2021. Our CEUs are actually good for APC, of course, and AHIMA. So make sure to check us out and always come back to our website. We always have CEUs for you whenever you need it. And of course, our MCG manual. So this one is really good tool. A lot of you are also asking, where do you get the chart that you have? Or those test taking tools that we always show you in our presentations, some of our presentations, a lot of those inpatient charts that you're going to need for CCS. If you are studying for CCS, we have great resources, and all of that you can find in your MCG manual. So please, again, I ask you to go ahead and visit our website or ask our customer service about how to get the MCG manual. It's a great tool for all of the medical coders out there. Thank you. And oh yeah, this is one of the good things too that we want to recommend. We highly recommend if you're looking for a online encoder, if you are out there working as a medical coder and you need a really good online encoder tool, we highly recommend the Finalcode. It's really easy to use and they have some great resources. We played around on this tool actually last week when we had our wonderful Miss Amy came by and did her presentation. And actually in today's presentation, we are going to be using this tool as well, and you will see how really helpful and convenient this tool is. So yeah, so we recommend Find a Code, medical coding and billing made easy. All right, so before we begin our presentation, I think it's really good for you to meet our AMCI team. We had a wonderful team over here. We have Miss Becca, who is our AMCI customer service angel. I'm Miss Rochelle, and we have Miss Michonne, Miss Tamika, Miss Bennett, Miss Christelle, and Miss Mills. And of course, our wonderful director of curriculum, you probably already know. She's our one and only Mrs. J. She's actually here in the chat if you want to say hello to her. And then we have some wonderful co-instructors as well. We have Miss Andrea, Miss Takima, Miss Tiffany, Miss Carla, if you're here. Hi, Miss Denise, Miss Lakshmi, Miss Sarmi, Miss Patricia, Miss Kamishia, Miss Brenda, Miss Shalini, Miss Stacy, Miss New, Miss Han, Miss Melody, and Miss Tiffany. So just want to shout out to all of our amazing assistant instructors. But today is our one of our amazing instructors day. This is her big day and she prepared a wonderful presentation for you today. I know you can't wait to hear her voice. She is our one and only greatest of all time here at AMCI, Miss Tracy. Hello, Miss Tracy. How are you?
Hello, hello, Miss Rochelle. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Miss Rochelle, for that wonderful introduction. And let me just advance my screen here. And Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical issues coming up in this presentation is screaming in my ear over here. So, okay, sorry everyone. Hello and welcome. I want to thank you all for joining today for this presentation on NCCI edits. And as Ms. Rochelle said earlier, you'll find the PDF copy in your handout section of this presentation. So we have shared it with you there. So please go ahead and grab that. And I hope you all enjoy. And let's go ahead and begin. I just want to do a quick sound check. I want to make sure everybody can hear me because you guys are pretty quiet over here in the chat. So let's go ahead and do sound check. Can you
You
hear
said
me, Miss
great.
Rochelle?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
I hear you great, Miss Tracy.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. Okay, sounds good. I was having a little bit of technical issues when I first started. So let's go ahead and begin, everyone. Enjoy.
Only going up, up, up. Never coming down, down, down.
Hello and welcome to the presentation on advanced modifiers, how to resolve NCCI edits. I'm Mrs. Tracy. Let's begin. CPT is copyright of American Medical Association. All rights are reserved. CPC is a registered trademark of AAPC. AAPC content found within this presentation is copyright of AAPC. Keyword concept, FTR, Chun, AMCI Fab 7, and Flip and Tap are all trademarks of AMCI. Before we begin, I have a quick disclaimer. This is going to be an advanced level presentation, and attendees should already have the following skill set. We should know our coding conventions and guidelines for ICD-10-CM and CPT, as well as have a good understanding of modifiers. The solutions in this presentation were verified using the Finalcode validation tool by Innovi Health, and solutions found in this presentation are accurate as of the date of the drafting of this presentation. The goals of the presentation, we're going to provide an overview of NCCI edits. We're going to understand why NCCI edits are so important. We'll identify the correct coding modifier indicators, CCM. We're going to define the modifiers used to bypass edits. We will learn how to manually look up NCCI edits, and we are going to apply NCCI edits using a correct coding modifier validation tool. So what exactly is an NCCI edit? I want you to tell me in your own words in the chat if you know what an NCCI edit is, or if you think you know what an NCCI edit is, go ahead and let me know. And if you are joining us and you are in our CCS class, you have become familiar with NCCI Edit. We do talk about it in our CCS class, but we're really going to dive deep into the understanding of it today. So let me know in your own words what you think an NCCI Edit is, and let me know if you've ever had experience working with an NCCI editing software. So basically, NCCI is the acronym for National Correct Coding Initiative. Now, sometimes you might just hear it referred to as CCI. The two terms are used interchangeably. And basically what it is it's an automated editing system. So pretty much what it does is it identifies coding errors that are made by providers using an automated pre-payment review. So basically before it gets sent out for payment, it's popped into an editor and the errors are able to be corrected before being sent out. That way proper reimbursement can be made. Now, the NCCI edits were developed by CMS, and basically CMS is responsible for developing, revising, and maintaining the NCCI edits. They also respond to queries regarding the NCCI program, and they promote program integrity as well as compliance. And these NCCI edits, they are updated quarterly. So yes, they are updated quite frequently. So what is the NCCI edit's purpose? Well, it's pretty simple. The purpose of the NCCI edits is to promote correct coding and to prevent improper payments. Let's say that again. Promote correct coding and prevent improper payments. So it has a very, very important job. And it's very important to really run your codes through an editing software before being sent out for payment. That way, proper reimbursement can be given. So what do edits prevent? Well, edits help to prevent unbundling, upcoding, downcoding, and claim denials. Edits allow for proper coding and proper reimbursement. Before we get to the good stuff, we're going to visit an old guideline, our surgical package. So our surgical package is based on the concept that there are more items than just the surgery bundled into a surgery code. We have, of course, the surgical procedure. However, the E&M service that's subsequent to the decision for surgery as part of this package, the local infiltration, metacarpal, metatarsal digital block, or topical anesthesia, the post-operative care, evaluating the patient in post-anesthesia recovery, and writing orders. These are all part of the surgical package. However, in addition to this, there are also other services that may be inherently part of that procedure and therefore bundled. Take, for instance, cardiopulmonary monitoring. Many procedures do require cardiopulmonary monitoring, and in that case, when cardiopulmonary monitoring is being performed, it is considered integral to the procedure and therefore would not be coded separately. Now, your excisions include simple repairs, and so if a simple repair is or a simple closure is performed during an excision, the simple closure would not get coded separately. It is bundled into the excision code. So just having the knowledge of the concept of that surgical package and the procedures that are bundled into it is very important to correct coding and receiving appropriate reimbursement. And sometimes we need help of a coding editor, editing software, and that's where NCCI editing software comes into play. So we'll get some practice using that today. Now, there's actually a National Correct Coding Initiative policy manual, and you can find this manual at cms.gov. And cms.gov, if you haven't been to this site, it has a wealth of information. I encourage all of you guys to come here. It is free. You can type anything in the search bar that you would like. So for instance, type in NCCI edits and it'll bring you here to this page, and you can access that policy manual. So basically, the policy manual, when you click on that link, NCCI Policy Manual for Medicare, on the right-hand side, it's going to populate all the chapters that are included in this manual. And it's broken down like this. You have your introduction, and these are all PDF files, so they're very easy to open and view. You have, so the introduction there. You have Chapter 1, which is the general correct coding policies. And then you get into your different chapters in your CPT as well as your HCPCS manual. So chapter 2 is going to be your anesthesia codes from section 00000 to 01999. Chapter 3 is your 10,000 series code, that is integumentary. You have chapter 4, which is musculoskeletal, your 20,000 codes, and so on. Chapter 5 is your 30,000 series. Chapter 7 or 6 is your 40,000. Chapter 7 is your 50,000. Chapter 8 is your 60,000. Chapter 9, your 70,000. Chapter 10 is your 80,000 series. Chapter 11 is your 90,000. And then you get to Chapter 12, which is your HCPCS codes A0000 to V9999. And then Chapter 13, HCPCS codes 0001T to 0999T. Now, this manual is updated annually. The NCCI edits are updated quarterly, and the NCCI policy manual is updated annually. Now, just remember that the NCCI edits include 3 types of edits. We have medically unlikely edits, we have procedure-to-procedure coding edits, and we have add-on code edits. So let's take a closer look. The NCCI edit types are medically unlikely edits, those are the MUEs, and then we have procedure-to-procedure edits, the PTP. Now, there's also add-on code edits, which I think we are all pretty familiar with. An add-on code is a CPT or HCPCS code that describes a service that is performed with another primary procedure by the same practitioner. and an add-on code is reported in addition to the primary procedure. Remember, our add-on codes never stand alone. They are always coded in addition to the primary procedure, okay? Now, medically unlikely edits indicates the maximum number of unit assignments, and a procedure-to-procedure edit indicates when two codes, a CPT or HCPCS code, can be coded together. Now remember that these apply to the same beneficiary on the same date of service and same provider in the outpatient. Okay, so we are really going to focus most of our attention on the procedure-to-procedure edits. However, let's take a peek at the MUEs just to get a little bit of familiarity with it. So what is an MUE? A MUE is a medically unlikely edit. So basically, it indicates the maximum number of times a procedure can be reported for one beneficiary and one date of service. So MUEs basically prevent payment for an inappropriate number or quantity of the same service on a single day by the same provider for the same beneficiary, okay? Same date of service. And it's indicated by units of service or UOS. So let's have an example. Here's an example of an MUE table. In this example, you will see in the first column you have your HCPCS or CPT code. In the second column is the MUE value, and the MUE value represents the maximum number of units for that procedure for that date of service by the same provider performed on the same patient. Then you have your MUE adjudication indicator, also referred to as the MAI. And this is basically indicating the type of MUE and its basis. And the MAI is assigned to CPT or HCPCS codes to determine how the claim will process and or deny. So for instance, if you have a MAI of 1, that claim will be adjudicated as a claim line edit, but there may be modifiers that are required to distinguish either maybe repeat services or anatomic differences. Now, when you have an MAI of 2, as you can see in that first, well, most of them on this in the third column are a 2. That basically indicates an absolute date of service edit, and these are per day edits based on policy. As you can see where it says to date of service edit and it says policy, these are based on policy, and pretty much there's an expectation that the provider will not bill above the allowable MUE. And then if you see the last two codes there, they have a 3 MAI, and basically a 3 are per day edits based on clinical benchmarks. So you can see 3 date of service edit, clinical, and these may require additional units, or additional units I should say are considered if there is adequate documentation of medical necessity to support the reported units. Okay, but basically a 2 pretty much means that's absolute. That's pretty much the max. That's all you can report. The other ones, there may be special circumstances that may apply. So just keep that in mind. And then in your fourth column, you have your MUE rationale. Now let's take a peek at the first 3 codes there. We're going to look at 17000, 17003, and 17004, and we're going to focus mainly on the MUE values. So if we look at 17000, this is for destruction of a premalignant lesion for the first lesion. Now 17000 is only coded, as you can see in that code language, for the first lesion. If we look at the MUE value in the second column for 17000, it tells us 1. And again, this is 2, an MUE adjudication indicator of 2 based on policy, meaning we can only report that code 1 time. Now, if we look at add-on code 17003, this is coding for the 2nd through 14th lesion, and it says each, meaning we would report any lesion that we have from 2 to 14, we code it each time. So if we had those 2 through 14, that means we would code 17003 13 times. So the value for this code, the maximum number of times we can report 17003 on that same data service for the same beneficiary is going to be 13, as indicated by 13 in the 2nd column for the MUE value. Now finally, if we go to 17004, this is for destruction of a premalignant lesion 15 or more. So whether you have 15, 16, 17, 100, it doesn't matter. 17004 will only be reported one time because the code language indicates 15 or more. It does not say each, as we saw in 17003. So if you look at 17004 on our table and look at the MUE value, it says that it can only be reported one time on that date of service according to policy, that we cannot exceed that amount, okay? So hopefully that puts it into a little bit of perspective for you. Hopefully this visual helped. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Procedure to procedure code pair edits. What are procedure to procedure code edits? Well, they're also called PTP edits, and they apply to code pairs that should not be built together or that are typically not built together. Basically, one procedure in the code pair is bundled into the other. But in some cases, the two procedures may be built together, but it has to be appropriate. And by appropriate, I mean it has to be supported by documentation. Now, if you can report these two procedures together and it is appropriately documented, a modifier would be needed to bypass the edit. Now, there are two categories of edits. We have edits for practitioners and edits for the hospital. The practitioners include physicians, non-physicians, and ambulatory surgery centers. And the hospital is hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, home health agencies, outpatient physical therapy, speech-language pathologists, and comprehensive outpatient rehabilitation facilities. Here's an example of an NCCI procedure-to-procedure table. Most of them are pretty similar to the way this one looks. You have different categories. You have your column 1 codes, you'll have your column 2 codes listed. If it was in existence prior to 1996, it will have an effective date, a deletion date if applicable. You'll have a correct coding modifier indicator of 0, 1, or 9, and then you'll have your procedure to procedure edit rationale. And this is just a procedure to procedure edit table from Medicaid.gov. And these are the 2nd quarter NCCI procedure to procedure edits. They begin on 4/1/2021. You can see the category here is practitioner services. It includes a column 1 and a column 2, an effective date, a deletion date. We have the modifier indicator of either 0, 1, or 9, and then we have a procedure to procedure edit rationale. So it looks pretty similar to what we saw on the last slide. And I went ahead and entered in a code here, 49320, and 49320 is basically a diagnostic laparoscopic procedure. And when I hit enter, interesting enough, this procedure came up under a column 2. So you can either enter one code there, or you can enter 2 codes if you want to compare, check that code pair, and it'll just basically place it in the correct column. On this one, I just entered in that 49320, and it basically came up that 49320 is a column 2 code, and as we know, diagnostic procedures are bundled into surgical procedures, so it makes sense that this would come up as a column 2 code. Now, in the modifier or the correct coding modifier indicator column, you'll see here either a 1 or a 0. Sometimes you'll see a 9 listed, and we're going to talk about what this means. So you have column 1 and you have column 2 and you have the indicator. These are the three areas that we're going to focus on a little bit further. Now, a column 1 code is basically the comprehensive procedure. So as I said, when two codes are entered into the editing software, it will separate those codes into either column 1 or column 2. Column 1 is the procedure that is more comprehensive or more complex. And what do you think the column 2 code is? Well, the column 2 code is the component of the service in column 1, or the bundled procedure. Now, your correct coding modifier indicators are either 0, 1, or 9. A 0 is going to indicate that a modifier is not allowed and will not bypass the edit. A 1 indicator is going to indicate that a modifier may be allowed and will bypass the edit when appropriate. Keyword, when appropriate, okay? So documentation must support the need for reporting those two codes together when they typically wouldn't be reported, okay? And a 9 just basically means the edit does not apply to the procedure-to-procedure code pair. All right, so if we take the first line, for example, 15823 and 92081, though that code pair is indicated by a 0. So basically, that 0 is saying, hey, you cannot report these codes together under any circumstances, not even with a modifier. Now, if you look down at the third pair, 65855 and 92020, it's indicating that this is allowed. The edit can be bypassed if appropriate. Okay, so a 0 means it is not allowed, and a 1 basically means it is allowed when appropriate, but you need to use a modifier, a correct coding modifier, not just any old modifier. You have to use a correct coding modifier. So what is a correct coding modifier? So I'm going to walk you through the modifiers that can bypass the edits when you see a 1 indicator. So you have anatomic modifiers, you have global surgery modifiers, and you have some other modifiers. So let's break them down. Starting off with our anatomic bypass modifiers, we have E1 through E4 for our eye specificity. We have FA and F1 through F9 for finger specificity, TA and T1 through T9 for the toe specificity. We have laterality, LT and RT, indicating left and right side. And then we have the coronary artery specificity, LC, LD, RC, LM, and RI. Our global surgery modifiers is 24, unrelated E&M service, 25, significant separately identifiable E&M service, 57, the decision for surgery, 58, staged or related service. We have 78, unplanned return to operating or procedure room, and 79, unrelated procedure or service. And here are some other modifiers that can be used to bypass edits. Modifier 27 is used to indicate multiple outpatient hospital E&M counters on the same date. Modifier 59 is distinct procedural service. Modifier 91 is repeat clinical diagnostic laboratory test.
And then we have our X modifiers to be used in lieu of modifier 59 when the payers require it. So we have XE, which indicates a separate encounter. XS is a separate structure. XP is a separate practitioner. And XU is an unusual, non-overlapping service. So let's take a closer look at our X modifiers. Now, about 6 years ago, I think it was now, 2015, Medicare implemented these X modifiers, and they had the idea in mind that the usage of these modifiers to be used in lieu of modifier 59 would help to reduce overpayment errors. So some payers have actually embraced the use of these X modifiers, and they require the use of them. These modifiers, they're just more specific. They're level 2 HCPCS modifiers, and they are to be used instead of or in lieu of modifier 59 when appropriate. Now, the X modifiers are XE, which indicates a separate encounter on the same date of service. So if a patient had two different encounters on the same date of service, maybe they had one in the morning and one in the evening, that would justify the use of an XE modifier to indicate a separate encounter took place on the same date of service. Now you have the XP modifier, and this is for a separate practitioner on the same date of service. So when a patient is seen by the separate practitioner on the same date of service, that XP modifier could be used. And then you have the XS modifier. This is probably the one that's used the most, I would say, and this indicates a separate structure. So it has to be a separate incision or excision, a different lesion, and separate injury or area of injury in extensive injuries, not ordinarily encountered or performed. Now, this has to be on the same day by the same individual. So let's say that a patient had an injection into two different structures. Maybe they had a injection into their leg and then one into their shoulder. Say it was a steroid injection into their leg and a steroid injection into their shoulder. That would indicate separate structures, and we can indeed report an XS modifier. Now, XU is unusual, non-overlapping services. So this is when an unusual or non-overlapping service is performed, and it has to be the same encounter by the same practitioner on the same anatomical site, structure, or organ. All right, so same encounter, same practitioner, same anatomical site, organ, or structure, and to use this unusual non-overlapping service. So I have an exercise for you. So if you'd like to code this, please do so. Hopefully you have your CPT manual with you. And just tell me on this one how we would code it and which modifiers would be appropriate. All right, so we have a patient that had an arthrocentesis of his knee and an arthrocentesis of his shoulder performed at the same session by the same physician. How do you think this would be reported? Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute and your time begins now. Good luck. Okay, do you have your answer? Now, if we look this up, this patient had an arthrocentesis of his knee and an arthrocentesis of his shoulder. Those are both major joints. So if you look up code 20610 in your CPT manual, you will find that arthrocentesis of the shoulder, hip, knee, or subacromial bursa is reported with code 20610. So in this case, we're going to report 20610 twice because there was an arthrocentesis of the knee and there was an arthrocentesis of the shoulder. So we would report it as 20610 and 20610 modifier 59 to indicate a distinct procedural service, or if the payer requires or accepts the X modifiers, then in this case, we might just need to report the XS in lieu of the modifier 59 to indicate that this procedure was performed on a separate structure. Okay, so that's pretty much how that works. And if you got that correct, great job, coders. Now, I'm going to move on and we're going to talk a little bit more about modifiers. Now, we talked about the modifiers that can be used to bypass edits. Now, there are some modifiers that cannot be used to bypass edits, and those modifiers are modifier 76, repeat procedural service by the same physician or qualified healthcare professional, and 77, repeat procedure or service by another physician or qualified healthcare professional. These modifiers cannot bypass the edits. Modifier 22 is used to indicate an increased procedural service. Now, modifier 22 is not a modifier that will bypass an NCCI procedure to procedure edit. However, sometimes it is occasionally relevant. So when two procedures are performed by a provider that should not be reported together based on the NCCI procedure to procedure edit, if an edit is allowed, then an associated procedure to procedure modifier can bypass that edit. Only if the clinical circumstances justify the use of that modifier, then both services can be reported with the modifier, of course, to bypass it. However, if an NCCI procedure to procedure edit does not allow the use of a modifier, so it has an indicator of 0, it means that it cannot be bypassed, and that procedure qualifies as an unusual procedural service, the physician may report the column 1 code with a modifier 22. And then after that, basically it can be evaluated to determine whether additional payment is justified. So pretty much the MAC would then evaluate that unusual procedural service and determine whether additional payment is justified. So sometimes modifier 22 is a relevant modifier. However, just keep in mind it does not bypass an NCCI procedure to procedure edit. We must remember that we only use procedure to procedure modifiers when appropriate. So modifiers may be appended to either our HCPCS or our CPT codes, but only when the clinical circumstances justify the use of the modifier. If it is not justified in the documentation, we cannot use it. Documentation must support the use of a procedure to procedure modifier. So appending a modifier to a code basically indicates that records are available for review that supports the usage of that modifier. So again, very important to know when to use those modifiers and to make sure that we are using them appropriately. So an example would be a separate patient encounter, separate time unit, separate anatomic site, or a separate specimen. Now for the do nots. Thou shalt not report multiple HCPCS CPT codes when a single comprehensive HCPCS or CPT code describes a service. We must not fragment a procedure into component parts. We must not unbundle, downcode, upcode, or report units of service incorrectly. And a provider must never perform services on different dates of service to avoid MUE or NCCI procedure-to-procedure edits. So going back to the cms.gov website, this is a great resource and I really encourage you all to check it out. You can find some NCCI frequently asked questions here. So again, I encourage you when you have some time to just kind of come in here and poke around a little bit, and there's a wealth of knowledge and you'll learn a lot from this website. I'm sure of it. All right, I have some exercises for you to test our knowledge of what we've learned so far. Our first one is NCCI modifiers associated with NCCI edits are allowed with the procedure-to-procedure code pair and the review of the rationale when the indicator is A, 0, B, 9, C, 3, or D, 1. All right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds and your time begins now. Good luck. All right, that is time. You have your answers. And our keyword here is allowed. So if we look at the table, and remember we have our column 1, our column 2, we're going to go all the way over to our modifier indicator, and we need a modifier of 1, correct? A modifier of 1 that will say yes, a modifier is allowed to bypass this edit, and our answer here is going to be 1. And I know you guys got that. Great job. So again, remember if it says 0, it means it is not allowed. If it has a 1, it is allowed. And if it has a 9, it is not applicable. Excellent job. All right, moving right along, our next exercise. You are building an NCCI code pair. You've just reviewed the NCCI edit table, and the code pair has a 9 indicator. Can you append modifier 59? A, yes, or B, no? And you have 30 seconds. Your time begins now. Good luck. Okay, coders, that is time. And if we look at our table, remember 9 indicates that it is not applicable, meaning that code pair does not need a modifier. So the answer here is going to be no. It is not applicable. No modifier is needed. Great job, everyone. Have another one for you. So this one's a true or false. The MUE edits are prepay edits that automatically apply to the claim when the code build represents units in excess of the maximum MUE value. Is it A, true, or B, false? You have 30 seconds and your time begins now. Good luck. Okay, that is time. And our answer here is going to be true. So yes, all NCCI edits are prepay, meaning they are placed in this editing software and errors are found and fixed before the claim goes to the insurance carrier. Medically unlikely edits represent number of units. Excellent job, everyone. So the way to resolve an NCCI procedure-to-procedure code edit with an indicator of 1 is by the use of an appropriate CPT or HCPCS modifier. But the clinical documentation, as we learned, must support the usage of that modifier. So one last time, just so we make sure that we got it, these are the procedure-to-procedure modifier indicators. And remember, when it's a column 1 and a column 2, and the modifier indicator is 0, it means that those two procedures cannot be reported together and not even a modifier will bypass that edit. Now, if it's a column 1 and a column 2 with an indicator of a 1, it means that those two codes in certain circumstances can be reported together. However, an appropriate CPT or HCPCS modifier would be needed to bypass that edit when appropriate. I have to keep saying it. And 9 just means it's not applicable. How is everyone feeling so far? Are you getting this? Is everything making sense? And most importantly, are you ready to put this into practice? Because I have some good stuff coming up for you. And the first thing I'm going to do is walk you through this really awesome tool that AMCI uses that our friends over at Finalcode developed. Now, this Finalcode has so many things, so many tools. The main one that we're going to use today for the purpose of this presentation is located under Scrubbing and Validation. So if you go to Tools, a drop-down menu will appear. You'll see Scrubbing and Validation, and we're going to be accessing the CCI Validator. And you notice here that there are two. There's one for non-facility and one for facility. We will just be more focusing on the non-facility today, but just know that you can put it either way. And also, I want to just, while we're here, show you that there is also ways that you can scrub a claim, code a note. There's an ICD-10-CM validator here. They have education and training. There's calculators. There's a really awesome E&M calculator that Finalcode also has as well. But like I said, today I would love to be able to show you everything that's here, but we really have to stay focused on the task at hand, and that is NCCI edits. So without further ado, let's go ahead and click on the CCI Validator. So when you click on the CCI Validator, basically you'll come to this page, and there's a box, a blank box here on codes to enter. So you just enter in your codes that you want to check here, and then you'll click on Validate. Let's try it out. So I have entered in two codes, 45378 and 45380. So if you want to grab your CPT manual and look those two codes up there and tell me if there's anything wrong with these codes, go ahead and do that right now. But we're going to enter in those two codes, and we are going to click on Validate. So I'm going to actually give you a moment to look these two codes up, and I want to see what information you can provide on these two codes before we even place it into the editor. So I'll give you just a moment. Do you have your answer? Okay, I've entered in both of these codes and I've clicked validate. So when you do that, both the codes are going to populate. And I love it because it gives you a description of the code and it provides NCCI edit results. Now, if we first look at 45380, I notice there's a little green check with an OK next to that. The description of this code is this is a colonoscopy flexible with biopsy, single or multiple, and the NCCI edit results say there are no NCCI edits for this code. Now, if I look down at 45378, there is an error. This is for a colonoscopy flexible diagnostic, including collection of specimens by brushing or washing when performed, separate procedure. Now, if I look at the NCCI edit results, it says that edit exists with 45380 and 45378. It says edit exists with 45380. It says 45378 is a column 2 code. So this 45378 is column 2, the 45380 is a column 1. It says if both of these procedures are submitted, only 45380 will be paid. Now, is there a way that we can bypass this? Let's go ahead and look down. It tells us that this edit cannot be overridden by a CCI associated modifier. And the rationale, CPT separate procedure definition. So that's why it's important going back to our guidelines that we know what this guideline for separate procedure is. So remember, any time that you have a diagnostic procedure performed in the setting of a surgical procedure, that diagnostic procedure is bundled and not coded separately. So in this case, the 45378 is the component of the more complex or comprehensive procedure 45380 and therefore does not get coded separately. Pay attention, separate procedure. So the only code that we are going to report here is going to be 45380. Now, while we're here, I just want to take a moment to put your eyes up at the top of the screen and let you know some other things that this Find a Code CCI Validator includes. Now, you have, it talks about the National Correct Coding Initiative edits up at the top. You can view the NCCI edit manual, you know, that manual that we saw on the CMS website earlier, that policy manual. You can view it from here too by chapter. It's really cool the way it's laid out. And then you have the NCCI modifiers there. And since we are in non-facility edition, if you needed to switch to facility edition, you can do it by the click of a button. It's pretty cool, pretty quick and easy. And I want to look at the NCCI modifiers. I'm just going to click on that up there. I know we've already talked about the NCCI modifiers, but I'm just going to show you if you click on that, what comes up. And again, just want to remind you that the only code that we would be coding in the setting of these two codes is going to be 45380. So did you get that answer? If you did, great job. If you learned something, we always say here at AMCI, that is priceless. So clicking on that NCCI modifier link, it brings you here to all of the modifiers. And we talked about all of these earlier. You have your anatomic modifiers. You have your global surgery modifiers and then your other modifiers. Now, the other thing I wanted to quickly show you was on this tool, you can actually click on that plus sign. You see where it says cross the code? You can actually click on that and it'll actually open up to a lot of different things. So cross a code, it'll actually, you can input your carrier, by your carrier only or by your state carrier or all carriers. You can put the current date. You have ICD-10-CM codes that you can open up here, PCS codes, you have HCPCS codes, UB04 revenue codes, ICD-10-9, ICD-9 CM codes there, CPT and HCPCS modifiers, you have NCCI edit modifiers, right there, you know, easily accessible. You have NDC codes, SNOMED concepts, ABC codes. So just wanted to show you everything that really is included here within this CCI validator. Now, if you opened up the little NCCI Edit tab, in addition to finding that little link up at the top of the tool, you can even click here, click on the plus sign for where it says NCCI Edit Modifiers, and it'll bring up a listing of modifiers. Now, certain modifiers can be used to override an NCCI Edit exclusion where allowed and clinically appropriate, as we already learned in our previous discussion. And this is not an all-inclusive list of those NCCI edit associated modifiers, and it tells you that to view all of those, you can just click right there and it'll link you right up to viewing all of the associated modifiers. For the remainder of our time, we are just really going to put this into practice. I have some exercises for you. I will give you time to solve, and then we will place this into the editing software and see what comes up. Now, the first one here is Mr. Carmel arrives to the surgery center for a repair of bilateral eyelid ectropion. Dr. Cruz performs an extensive repair on the left lower eyelid and an excisional tarsal wedge on the right lower eyelid. How would Dr. Cruz report the services? All right, everyone, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck. All right, that is time. What did you come up with? So for the codes here, and first let's go ahead to the keywords, but this patient has ectropion, as you can see here in the picture. There's an extensive repair on the left lower eyelid, and there's an excisional tarsal wedge on the right lower eyelid. So we have 2 procedures performed here on different eyelids. So the codes here, 67916 and 67917. So what we're going to do is we are going to check these codes. So we're going to put them right here in this box, 67916 and 67917, and we are going to validate. So when we validate, here's what comes up. We have 67917 that says it's a repair of ectropion, extensive, tarsal wedge. So yes, we had an extensive repair on the lower left eyelid, and then we had an excisional tarsal wedge on the right lower eyelid. So 67917 is covering that extensive ectropion, And it says there is no NCCI edits for this code. But if we go down to 67916, there is a warning. It tells us that there is an edit that exists with 67917. That 67916, this repair of ectropion excisional tarsal wedge, is a column 2 code. And if both these codes are reported together, that only 67917 is going to get paid. However, look at the edits. It says in this case, unlike our last exercise, this one can be overridden with a CCI associated modifier when appropriate. Okay, and the rationale is more extensive procedure. So the 67917 is a more extensive procedure than the 67916. However, these procedures were reported on different eyelids. They were not reported on the same eyelid. If they had been reported on the same eyelid, then yes, we would only code the 67917. However, these are performed on different eyelids. So if we look at the top modifiers that are billed with these codes, we see modifier 51, we see right RT modifier, we see 50, and then we see the eyelid specificities. Well, we want to make sure that we are coding to the highest level of specificity. So if we can get down to exactly which eyelid this was performed on, that is perfect. So really, the extensive repair was on the left lower eyelid. If we look at our modifiers on this list, the lower eyelid is indicated by an E2 modifier. And if we look at the other one, the right lower eyelid, that's the excisional tarsal wedge on the right lower eyelid. And the right lower eyelid is indicated by an E4 modifier. So we're going to use an E2 on code 67917, and we're going to use an E4 on 67916. So that's the way we bypass that edit, and it is appropriate because it is appropriately documented. So that's pretty cool, don't you think? Let me know if you got this, if you're getting it, and if you want more, because I definitely have more for you all. So on that note, let's go ahead and we're going to move right along to our next exercise. Gypsy arrived at the surgery center. A percutaneous needle core biopsy without imaging guidance on her right breast and a lumpectomy on her left breast was performed. How would this be reported? All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck. Okay, do you have your codes? Let's go ahead and reveal. So there's two procedures going on here. We have a percutaneous needle core biopsy without imaging guidance on the right breast, and then we have a lumpectomy on the left breast. The codes here, 19100 and 19301. Now we're going to look to see if these codes pair together, if they can be coded together, and if there is any modifiers that are needed. So let's go ahead and take a peek. So when we place it in our coding validator and we validate these codes, we see 19301, which is the mastectomy partial. That includes the lumpectomy. So this 19301 is the code for the lumpectomy. It tells us that that code is okay. There are no NCCI edits for that code. However, when you go down to 19100, that is for the biopsy of the breast, percutaneous needle core, not using imaging guidance. And take note, that is a separate procedure. So if it is an inclusive component or related to the other more extensive procedure, it is bundled. All right, so let's take a closer look at this. It says that an edit exists with 19301. 19100 is a column 2. So this biopsy is a column 2, and the 19301, the lumpectomy, is a column 1. So if both of those codes are reported together, only 19301 will be paid. But it says that this edit can be overridden with a CCI associated modifier when appropriate. Now, it tells us that these are the top modifiers that are billed with those codes. We have LT, RT, and CG. Now, because if we look at the scenario, because these two procedures were performed on different breasts, this substantiates the need to have a modifier, to report these two procedures together, and also to be able to do that, we have to use a modifier, right? So let's take a look. So their lumpectomy was performed on her left breast, so we can report 19301 with an LT modifier, and the biopsy was performed on the right breast. So we can report 19100 with an RT modifier. So that's going to be our answer. 19301 LT and 19100 RT. And that's how we do it. So type in the chat, does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions. And we're going to move right along because I have another one for you. Miss Starr arrives at the surgery center for a dilation of her esophagus over a guide wire, non-endoscopic. Due to extreme narrowing of her esophagus, the physician, Dr. Moon, was not able to carry out the guide wire dilation and had to convert the procedure to a retrograde endoscopic esophagoscopy balloon dilation. So how are we going to report this? All right, coders, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck. All right, do we have our codes? Okay, so the codes that I came up with for this non-endoscopic and endoscopic esophagoscopy with balloon dilation is 43453 and 43213. So we're going to take those codes and we're going to place them in the validator. So 43213, 43453, let's go ahead and validate. And here's what comes up. We have 43213, which is the esophagoscopy flexible transoral with dilation of esophagus by balloon or dilator, retrograde, includes fluoroscopic guidance when performed. This is code 43213, and if we see down at the bottom, this procedure, this non-endoscopic procedure that was performed above with guide wire wasn't able to be carried out. So this procedure had to be converted to that retrograde with balloon, right? 43213. Now let's go ahead and look at the NCCI edit results for this code. It says 43213 doesn't have any edits, no NCCI edits for this code. So that one checks out. But if we go down to 43453, there is an error that comes up. This is the dilation of the esophagus over guide wire. So this was the procedure that was performed first but couldn't be carried out due to narrowing of the esophagus, so the other procedure needed to be performed. So it tells us that an NCCI edit exists for 43213. 43453 is a column 2 code, and the 43213 is a column 1. So if these two codes are reported together, only the 43213 will be paid. Now, can an edit bypass this? Tell me, coders, is an edit able to bypass these two codes? Can these code pairs be reported together with a modifier? If you said the answer is no, you are correct, because if we look down at our NCCI edit results, it says that this edit cannot be overridden by a CCI associated modifier. It cannot be. So that means we are only going to be able to report the 43213. I did want to break away for just a moment because I think now is the perfect time to come over here and reference our National Correct Coding Initiative Policy Manual. So let's say in that last scenario, you just really weren't sure and you wanted to see if there was anything in this NCCI manual that you can read further about to kind of help you along the way in correct coding. So what you would do is you would come over here to cms.gov, you would click on the NCCI Policy Manual for Medicare, you would go over to the appropriate chapter. Coders, tell me which chapter we would reference for that last scenario, for that esophagoscopy. So remember, we have our introduction, we have our general coding policies, and then it's broken up by CPT chapters. So starting with anesthesia and then going to our 10,000, 20,000, and so on. All right, so let's go all the way down. So which one do you think we would reference for that last scenario? If you said our 40,000 series, you are correct. So these are our digestive system codes, right? So we're going to click on that. So it's going to basically bring you here to Chapter 6, Digestive System. You have a table of contents, and basically it just goes down. It has an introduction. It talks to you about E&M services, endoscopic procedures. So isn't this where we want to be, either endoscopic or esophageal? I think we want to be at endoscopic because that was non-endoscopic converted to an endoscopic. So let's go ahead and go Chapter 6, Section C. And when we get to section C, these are our endoscopic surfaces, and they're numbered from 1 all the way down to, I'm not really sure, but let's go ahead and take a look. If we keep scrolling down, we have 4, 5, 6. We're going to keep going. We're going to go to 7. And this is where I want to stop because 7 is talking about non-endoscopic esophageal dilation that fails. So if a non-endoscopic esophageal dilation, example, CPT codes 43450 and 43453 fails. So isn't our code in there? What was our code, coders? Do you remember? It was the 43453, correct? So that non-endoscopic procedure was performed, but it failed, and it was followed by an endoscopic esophageal dilation procedure. That other procedure that was performed was a 43213. So what do we do in this case? It says only the endoscopic esophageal dilation procedure may be reported. The physician shall not report the failed procedure. So, do you see how this manual is very, very useful? It kind of just assures us of what it's pretty much telling us in the editor. But if you wanted to read further, the policy manual is here and it has great information. I think it's very easy to read. It's very detailed. It's very well laid out. And I think it's a great reference tool. So looking at it a little bit further, again, it says if a non-endoscopic esophageal dilation, example CPT codes 43450, 43453 fails and is followed by an endoscopic esophageal dilation procedure, CPT codes 43213, 43214, or 43233, only the endoscopic esophageal dilation procedure may be reported and the physician shall not report the failed procedure. Fails is the key word here, and the physician shall not report that failed procedure. So if you look back at our codes, the non-endoscopic was the failed procedure, the 43453. And the procedure that it was converted to, that balloon dilation, 43213, is the only one that is going to be coded. And that's it. So going back to our software here, we are just going to report the 43213 because due to the extreme narrowing, Dr. Moon was not able to carry out that procedure, and a failed procedure, according to the guidelines in the policy manual, does not get reported. Great job, everyone. So type in the chat, does that make sense? If you got it, let me know you got it. Here's our next exercise. Mrs. Roberts visits her PCP, Dr. Tyler, for ear pain she has been experiencing. Dr. Tyler performs a medically appropriate history and exam with low medical decision making. He determines Mrs. Roberts has an ear infection. During the visit, the doctor notices a lesion on her arm, and Dr. Roberts performs a shave biopsy on the lesion, and it is determined that Mrs. Roberts has a benign mole. What codes are reported? All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck. All right, that is time. And what did you get for your answers? How'd you guys do on this one? So what I see going on here is I see this patient comes in, this doctor performs a medically appropriate history and exam, low medical decision making, and then during the visit, it looks like the doctor performs a shave biopsy on a lesion. So the answers that I came up with here are 11102 and 99213. All right, so it doesn't mean that these two codes are going to be reported, but I'm going to take these two codes to the editor and see if I can report them together and if there's any modifier that may need to be used. So when I place 11102 and 99213 into the validator and I check these codes, it says that 11102, this is the shave biopsy of a single lesion. That code checks out. It says that there are no NCCI edits for this code. So we're good there. Now we have to check the 99213. So let's look at 99213. So there is a warning right next to code 99213. The description of this service is an office or other outpatient visit for the E&M of an established patient, which requires a medically appropriate history and exam and low level of medical decision making. So we have established the medically appropriate history and exam with a low MDM, which would justify us to use, well, it doesn't justify us to use, but it points at a 99213. So because there was another service being performed here or another procedure, that shave biopsy, we have to really kind of look further into this and see if it is appropriate to code the 99213. So we have to look at the edits. Okay, we have to use caution with that warning. Now, if we look at the edits, it says that an edit exists with 11102 for this code, 99213. 99213 is a column 2 code, and if both the shave biopsy as well as this E&M visit are submitted, only the 11102 for the shave biopsy will be paid. Unless this is bypassed with a CCI associated modifier. So is it appropriate? Type in the chat, coders. Is it appropriate in this case to report the 99213 with an associated modifier? So the top modifiers that are billed are 25, 24, and GC. So 25 is going to be the most appropriate modifier in this case. We use modifier 25 when a significant, separately identifiable E&M service is performed by the same physician on the same date of service. Now, this patient came in and was being treated for that ear infection, correct? But during that visit, the doctor notices that lesion and he decides to perform a shave biopsy. So that is a significant, separately identifiable service, right? So that means we can report the 99213 with a modifier 25 to indicate that during this visit, that E&M service was basically separately and identifiable from that service that was performed or that procedure that was performed. And in that case, that makes 99213 modifier 25 the correct answer. And then we would also code, of course, the 11002. I have another one for you. So here we go. Our next exercise, Mrs. Roberts is having biopsies performed on 3 suspicious lesions on her back. Per PCP, Dr. Tyler performs a punch biopsy on one of the lesions and tangential biopsies using the shave technique on the other two lesions. It is determined that the lesions are benign. What CPT codes are reported? All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck. All right, that is time. Now let's go ahead and see what's going on here. So this patient has 3 suspicious lesions and she's having some biopsies performed. She has a punch biopsy on one of the lesions and she has a tangential biopsy using a shave technique on the other 2 lesions. So when I look these codes up in my CPT manual, or I look these procedures up in my CPT manual, I see that 11104 is for a punch biopsy, 11102 is for a tangential or a shave biopsy, and 11103 is a tangential each additional. So I have 3 codes that I'm going to place in my editing software, and I'm going to see what comes up. So just to remind you of the codes, we have 11104 for the punch biopsy, 11102 for the tangential shave biopsy, and 11103 for each additional tangential biopsy. So if I place those codes in my editor and then I click on validate, we're going to check these out. So 11104 and 11103 look like they are okay. There are no NCCI edits for those codes. So if I look at 11104, the description there is a punch biopsy of skin, including simple closure when performed, of a single lesion. It says there are no NCCI edits for this code. So I'm going to just place a check mark next to that punch biopsy code 11104. I like that code. It looks like we're good to go on that one. Now, if we go down to 11102, this is the tangential biopsy of the skin, such as shave, scoop, saucerize, curette, single lesion. Now we know this was a shave biopsy. So we had the punch biopsy and then we had 2 tangential biopsies done by a shave technique. So this 11102 code seems like it would fit. However, it tells us that there is an error. And what does that mean when it says it's an error? Well, if we go down to the NCCI edit results, it says that an edit exists with 11104. 11102 is a column 2 code, and if both 11104 and 11102 are submitted, only 11104 is going to get paid. Now, you notice it says this edit cannot be overridden with a CCI associated modifier. Why? The rationale is the CPT manual or CMS manual coding instructions. Now, if we reference our guidelines in our coding manual regarding these biopsy codes, there is a hierarchy. So basically, if the punch is performed with a tangential, you would report the punch as the main procedure, and then your tangential biopsies are going to get reported with 11103, which is the each additional modifier, okay? Or not the each additional modifier, the each additional code. All right, so we can go ahead and cross off tangential 11102 because we know that it's telling us here that we cannot report 11104 and 11102. There's a problem there, so we're getting rid of that. So what we do is we report the punch biopsy, and then we report the other two biopsies as the 11103. So basically, if we look down at 11103, there are no NCCI edits for this code. This is a tangential biopsy of skin, such as a shave, as happened here, each separate or additional lesion. And we're going to list separately in addition to the code for the primary procedure. So the primary procedure is the 11104, and then we would code the other two with 11103, and it's going to need a multiplier to indicate that there was two biopsies performed by the shave technique. So that's how it would look: 11104 and 11103 times 2. No modifiers needed here, and we are just not going to be reporting that 11102. So hopefully that makes sense. Type me in the chat. Let me know what you think of this one. And on that note, I have another one for you. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. I have another exercise, and I believe this will be our final exercise. Kayla has an excision of a 0.3 centimeter benign lesion on her stomach with a 1.0 centimeter intermediate repair. Which CPT codes are reported? All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Your time begins now. Good luck. All right, everyone, do you have your answers? Type them in the chat and let's see what's going on here. So this patient has an excision of a 0.3 centimeter benign lesion on her stomach and a 1.0 centimeter intermediate repair. So it looks like there's two different things going on. We have an excision and we have a repair. So if I look at these codes, it looks like I'm going to get 11400 and 12031. So I'm going to take those codes and I'm going to validate them. So I'm putting them in our validator here in our box 11401 and 12031, and I'm going to click on validate. And 11400 is basically the excision of that 0.3 centimeter benign lesion. And it looks like this code checks out. 11400 has a little green check, and it's saying that there are no NCCI edits for this code. Now we have to check for the intermediate repair. So let's look for the intermediate repair of 1.0 centimeters. This is reported by 12031. The description of 12031 is repair of intermediate wounds of scalp, axilla, trunk, and or extremities, excluding hands and feet, 2.5 centimeters or less. This was a 1.0 centimeter intermediate repair on the stomach. So I like this code. However, I can't ignore the warning. There is a warning sign there. So what is this warning for? Well, if we go down to the NCCI edit results, it says that an edit exists with 11400. 12031, so this intermediate repair is a column 2 code, and if both 11400, that excision, as well as this intermediate repair are submitted, only the excision is going to be paid. So only 11400 will be paid. Unless what? Unless there is a modifier, but we have to see if it is appropriate to use a modifier. So it says the edit can be overridden. So this particular edit can be overridden via a CCI associated modifier when appropriate. So coders, tell me here in the chat, is it appropriate in this case to use a modifier to override this edit? And if so, which modifier would we use? Giving you just a moment to answer. And if you said in this case it is indeed appropriate to report a modifier, or to report these codes together and use a modifier, you are correct, because look, we have justification in our documentation that both of these procedures are performed. We have an excision of that benign lesion, and we have an intermediate repair. So this would be a multiple procedure, right, in the same encounter. So if we look at the modifiers that are usually build with these codes, we have a modifier 51, we have a modifier 59, and a modifier 79. So out of those three, I would say the most appropriate modifier for this situation is going to be the modifier 51 to indicate multiple procedures. So we would actually append that modifier, of course, to our column 2 code. So we would report it as 11400 and 12031 and modifier 51. That way, this claim gets paid appropriately. We want to make sure that we are coding correctly so we receive the proper reimbursement. And just like that, we have successfully placed this in an editor, and we're going to send this claim out knowing that we did everything that we needed to do for proper coding and to receive proper reimbursement. Great job, everyone. So I know I said that was going to be our last scenario, and that was our last scenario. However, I do have one final exercise for you. And what I want you to do is look up the following codes: 58660 and 58661. I already have them in our box here, so we can go ahead and validate them. But I want you guys to look them up first in your coding manuals and see what you find out. Let me know what your predictions are when we place this into our CCI Validator. What do you think is going to be coded? Are we going to code 58660? Are we going to code 58661? Can we code them both together? And if so, is there going to be a modifier? So those are the things I want you to think about, and type your answers in the chat. You have 2 minutes and your time begins now. Good luck, everyone. All right, everyone. So we are getting ready to validate these codes. So I've placed them here: 58660, 58661. Do you have your answer? Do you have your predictions? Let's go ahead and validate. All right, so we're here on the validation tool, and 58661 is checking out. It is saying that this code is okay and there are no NCCI edits for this code. However, if we go down to 58660, it is bringing up an error message. Now, I do want to quickly backtrack and look at 58661 code descriptor, and this is for a surgical laparoscopic procedure with removal of adnexal structures, partial or total oophorectomy and or salpingectomy. All right, so if we look down at 58660, this is a surgical laparoscopic procedure with lysis of adhesions, salpingolysis, ovariolysis, and this is a separate procedure. So remember, if the separate procedure code is an integral component of the other code listed, it does not get coded in addition. So what does it say for our NCCI edit results for 58660? It says that an edit exists with 58661. 58660 is a column 2 code, and if both of these codes are reported together, only 58661 is going to be paid. And guess what? This edit cannot be overridden with a CCI modifier. So in this case, we cannot report these two codes together, And the rationale behind that is the separate procedure. This 58660 is an integral component to the 58661. Therefore, we are only going to report 58661. And I know you all got that. I know you rocked it. And guess what? That concludes our session. Let's summarize what we learned today. So today we learned what an NCCI edit is. We learned how to determine units of service for medically unlikely edits and how to identify the correct coding modifier indicator. We learned how to use bypass modifiers appropriately and how to apply modifiers using a correct coding initiative validation tool. And we learned that edits allow for proper coding and proper reimbursement. And we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. We truly appreciate you, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
All right, everyone, how are you doing? Type me in the chat. Let me know. I just want to make sure everybody's still with us. And I want to say again, thank you so much for joining us today for this presentation on NCCI edits. I hope you enjoyed it. And we have shared the CEU assessment link here in the chat with you. And just remember that you will also receive that it'll be emailed to you within 24 hours. And please take this assessment within 48 hours. And I believe that is it. Oh, and if you could fill out the survey for us on upon exiting today, we would really appreciate that. We always love to hear from you. And Miss Rochelle, thank you so much for all your help. And everybody was wonderful today. Miss Rochelle, I'm gonna let you come in, and I'm sure she has some things to say.
Oh, I'd love to. I enjoyed your presentation, Miss Tracy. That was great information. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. And attendees, thank you for joining us. And hopefully, you will be back next week for more of our AMCI March Madness events. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Miss Tracy.
Thank you, Miss Rochelle. All right, everyone, enjoy your day, and we'll see you soon.
$4,000 exam passers and free classes at AMCI. Learn to code straight from home or on the road at AMCI. We're on the East Coast, the West Coast. We're all around.